Welcome to the March 12th NID Board of Directors meeting. Let's please stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, directors. Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Division 1,
Yes, here.
Division 2,
Here.
Division 3,
Here.
Division 4,
Present.
Division 5.
Here.
We have a quorum and everyone's in attendance. Any comment for any items not on the agenda? This is the time for the public, if they want to say something, that we would listen. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any directors that have questions, want to pull any items, or can we have a motion?
I'll move we approve the consent agenda.
We have motion, second?
Second.
Yes, seconded by Earl. Thank you. Please, any public comment? Don't see any, but okay. Oh, seeing none, we will go to the vote, please.
All right. Division 5,
Yes.
Division 4,
Yes.
Division 3,
Aye.
Division 2,
Aye.
Division 1.
Yes. Okay, next is general orders. Surplus property declaration specific to the proposed Centennial Reservoir project. Imagine, is this Jennifer or Greg?
Take it.
Okay.
We got here quick.
Yeah.
All right. Jeez.
Yeah, this could be one of
I
our.
thought
record
I'd have a
meetings.
few more minutes to
Sorry, Greg.
think about, but okay. All right. Let's pull up the presentation. This will be quick. It's sort of an overview of last board meetings, but a more condensed version. Shouldn't have said it'd be quick. Maybe knock on wood. Okay. So, Board Greg Jones, Assistant General Manager. Good morning. Today we're talking about adopting resolution to declare 17 parcels within the Bear River footprint of the Centennial Reservoir, proposed Centennial Reservoir exempt surplus lands today, and your resolution is in the board packet. If you have questions on that or some of the language in it, the board and staff report is nearly the same as a couple weeks ago. Presentation is nearly the same, but a lot shorter. So we'll go through it just really briefly and give a general overview again of what we talked about. And a couple questions that we had last week was to include in this board resolution and this board packet was number one, around easements and the properties. And so we've included some language in the resolution to identify specific properties as we move forward on each individual one, that we can include an easement for the district's use for the future. And we will do that as we move forward for each property upon sale and upon designation, and when we actually go to sell them and in the deed. The other was to include a total revenue and supply. So staff time plus insurance costs. We had that slideshow, and we've got a slide on that here today that shows total staff time and total insurance costs over the last from 2017. And I believe that was all. There's one more that I can't recall, but we'll come to it. Okay, so all right. Oops. Are you doing that or am I? Okay. Again, just to remind ourselves what the Surplus Land Act is, it requires all agencies to follow a process. We are in the middle and the start of that process right now, declaring these 17 properties exempt. Surplus, which means land owned by the district, that is determined no longer necessary for the district's or agency's use. The properties, when they do become sold, and they are to be sold upon the terms that appear to the board to be for the best interest of the district. Any sale must be executed by the resolution of this board, and the properties must not be sold for less than fair market value. So that's just a reminder. Surplus lands is just a background. In 2024, we completed the plan for water process, and through that process, amongst other things, it identified the Centennial Reservoir in the Bear River as a limiting potential for district's beneficial use over the long term. On September 25th, the board passed Resolution 2024-36, which authorized the district to discontinue further feasibility, environmental, or other analyses in pursuit of that project. And during that period of time, staff identified these 17 parcels, mostly are residential. And in staff's interpretation and analyses, they really have no foreseeable operational use for the district. It's roughly about 137 acres in total within the Bear River. In the Bear River complete, there's 48 parcels that NID owns, and this is the section between Rollins Reservoir and Combi, totaling about 1,500 acres. Prior to 2013, NID had purchased 18 parcels totaling about 1,200 acres. So some of these larger parcels that we've seen in the Bear River, those are not part of this item today. And then between the dates of 2014 and 2019, NID purchased 30 additional parcels, which was about 300 acres in total. Today, we're talking about 17 of those 48 parcels, 9 of which have single-family homes existing on them. 2 of those existing homes are vacant. The others are rented, and 6 of the parcels are vacant land with no parcels. Some of them had a trailer on them. They were removed. Some of them are one of us is just a 35-acre vacant parcel that came with the purchase of one of those properties that had a home on it. We are asked to bring forth a map of the inundation area, inclusive of the parcels themselves. So this is a little difficult to see. We're going to zoom in on 3 different sections here, but the orange or the yellow, I guess, outline is the actual outline of what would be the inundation zone of the Centennial Reservoir. This map shows the green is an overlay on NID parcel, so that's what we own. The blue is the color of the parcel that we are anticipating moving forth today in the surplus designation, and the blue with the hashtag is a parcel that we're moving forth today with the surplus designation that has a residence on it, a home on it. The yellow line is a little difficult to see, but you can kind of see the outline of the reservoir at high water mark. And so just as an aside, that blue hashtag property right in the center of the screen, that is fully encompassed in the reservoir inundation area.
Oh, okay.
Can you see that? And then the little blue parcel on the upper left portion of the screen is outside of the inundation area, but it is a parcel that NID identified during its analysis of the project. And as a matter of fact, that's the top of the Magnolia Ranch property, the Pold Parker Ranch. And NID identified that as a potential for sort of like the beginning of the bridge and the roadway area. That's why we acquired that one. And it is outside the inundation. It's the only one that really doesn't touch the inundation area at all. This parcel is really, this picture touches on the majority of the parcels that we are looking at today. The orange, again, and I apologize, but it does come out a little light here in this presentation, but you can see the orange inundation line or yellow line as it goes along the Bear River. Again, the blue are the parcels that we are identifying. It's of the 17 parcels. The blue with the hashtag has a home on it. And then the green are NID owned parcels, but not part of this resolution today. And you can see how each of those parcels are touched by the inundation area. So they're either fully encompassed or they're partially encompassed by the inundation zone.
Rick, why are there multiple yellow lines? Like it's hard to see on the middle of the
Mhm.
screen.
Yeah.
There's, which one is the most outer one?
It's the most outer.
Most outer,
Yeah.
okay, I just.
There's a contour line in
There are
there,
contours.
and that contour line, I think, is yellow as well.
Thank you.
So.
It should be pretty close, huh? The contour line and the yellow line.
Additions
Yeah,
up.
exactly. I
Yes.
mean, the contour line, yellow line is pretty much a contour line, but I think the contour line that is yellow is an actual like
USGS
elevation.
or
It
something
calls a
like it.
USGS elevation out. One of the, maybe it's 1500 or something. Last picture, these are north of that. This is the properties north where Taylor Crossing comes down. The old Hanson gravel mine is there. Again, in green, parcels that NID owns, but not part of today's resolution. Of all those parcels we saw in blue, this is the highlight list of the parcels themselves, the address, the APN number, what county they're in, the date that we purchased them, the purchase price, and some other specifics about the parcel themselves. Vacant, how many beds, how many baths. These are just statistics.
Greg, just a quick
Yes.
clarification. We do not pay property taxes on Nevada County properties, or is it the ones that are inside our district?
It's inside the district.
Inside the district.
Yeah. This was the question of total annual revenue, net revenue. This is expenses minus receipt. So this is the net of 2017 to 2024 by year, by property. And these were mostly based on the homes and the residences that we would be receiving money from. So revenue from rental income. You can see that we went through and we did an analysis of what it cost our insurance premiums in order to hold these under our insurance package policy, as well as an estimate of staff time. That's not exact, but it's pretty close. Pretty close of estimate of staff time. It's administrative time, it's finance time, it's maybe if we had maintenance go out and do some work. So that gives a pretty good estimate of where we were. Previous.
Is it
Right.
1.1?
It was 1.1
Yeah.
or 1.2, so this was the question to bring in.
This is the actual net.
This is the actual.
The other one was represented as a net also.
Yes.
Well, it didn't include staff time, which
Yes.
is a big thing. Right.
That's right. So the two bottom lines there, insurance and staff in bold, those are new.
Those are what?
They're not new, but they were added from last board meeting's presentation at the request of the board. All right, so within the resolution itself, it has these 3 bullet points amongst others. It talks about us needing to exempt surplus land. It refers to section 54221F1N of the Act. And it refers to language in subdivision C, which is our agency's use in order to have our actions essentially indicating that, yes, this is exempt. We believe these are exempt surplus lands that the state will then analyze in the next 30 days and determine for us whether they believe it is exempt surplus lands or not. So the next steps here is today's board resolution, identifying these 17 properties as exempt. Next step, we are working on putting together a request for proposal / qualification for both a real estate broker and an appraiser. And then we will soon be sending the resolution as well as the notification to HCD. And then we will wait back a 30-day response period for them to tell us that they agree or not agree. And as I think Dustin indicated last time, if we do not hear from them within a 30-day window, that's sort of assumed that it's agreed to. So then we move forward with the sale.
Greg, I have a question about this. So when you're talking about an appraiser, does the act require that we appraise each parcel individually, or is it a bulk? And the same question goes for when the sale happens.
Yeah, the act does not The act does not state anything in regard to how we.
So you can bulk sale them or
You could.
I can't imagine, no, I
Yeah.
wouldn't think that we
We
would
talked
want
about
to.
that last time and I don't think.
Yeah, I
that's
just
our best
wanted to
interest.
get another sense about it. So, um, I would think that, I mean, we can release the RFP, right, to get some, interest generated, but we would not then award any kind of contract until we had the notification from HCD that they in fact,
Correct,
okay,
correct. Because then we would,
approve the exemption. Yeah,
because at that point, then there's a whole different process.
we went over
And a
that last.
broker, we would have to wait.
Mhm.
It would be a different scope and a scale.
Yep.
And it might be
Right.
7 months away, 8 months away.
No
so
kidding.
We wouldn't really necessarily need to award anything right away. So we'd
Right.
pretty much wait until we hear from the state to see what would happen. But we would like to get qualifications and a list of
Absolutely.
interested brokers so that we
Yeah.
can, and we may schedule meetings and talk to them. We haven't really itemized all that yet, but we want to move forward on it.
And then a quick follow-up. So when these sell, are any of these funds restricted as to where they go, or they go in the general fund, or what? That's what I wondered. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So it would, because that is a rate increase. This fund would say, put the revenue recreation
Right. Well, that's why I was asking, is like, where's the revenue going to go?
back.
Okay,
It's there.
right, okay.
And that is the end. So further discussions or questions?
A couple if I could.
Yes.
Because we're dealing with a state on this, are there any extra clearances, special clearances that are required to sell the property other than what the bank would require to loan on them?
Defensible space.
Anything from environmental clearance to hazmat clearance to fire clearance to anything. I don't know. Just
No.
Nothing that would be,
Yeah.
nothing that's required in the act.
Yeah, we discussed CEQA last meeting. Believe that CEQA would be invoked prior to selling these properties. There's no other provision of law that requires any other regulatory oversight or permit or anything like that.
But to Earl's point, if there's defensible space, if we do that work, we can probably do it cheaper than individual land, purchasers. And possibly I think it would increase the value of the land.
I don't know that we would do it cheaper.
No, I don't think we would do it cheaper.
Because of
And it
the
doesn't-
prevailing wage.
Yeah, well, no, we just have a greater overhead in administering contracts and paying invoices.
And Rich, I don't think it improves the value of the land. I mean, I've been involved in a lot of these lately, and, we can choose, especially since they're being sold individually as residences, we can choose to either do a defensible space inspection through CAL FIRE, which the law has required that you do that, or we can waive it and allow that to be the purchaser's
It'd be
responsibility.
as is.
Yeah, and as is seems to be the best way to do it. And we
With
can
the-
certainly waive those defensible space.
Yeah, with the
requirements.
three kind of better properties, I don't know how to
Mhm.
say it appropriately, but
More valuable.
more
perhaps?
valuable
There you go.
properties, there would be a potential that there would be more return on investment for doing smaller things like that
Right.
we'll take consideration of when we get,
Yep.
if the board approves a realtor on board.
Mhm.
And those are going to be,
The other properties, no.
Right.
we're going to talk to a real estate broker and get their professional opinion on what would need to be done to upgrade, make it a better sell,
Repeal.
basically given the best return on the investment of those properties that we can.
And it'll be individual to each and every.
It'll be
property.
individual to each
Yeah.
property.
And of course, my question on easements, basically, I was wondering what type of easement would we want so we can minimize liability, current and future, to the district and limit any operations and maintenance to maintain that easement? Is there a special easement that we can put on those to protect our interests, but minimize any maintaining of roads to get to it, maintaining of
Yeah.
this, et cetera?
So you'll note in resolve paragraph 6 of the draft resolution, we have proposed that the board delegate that authority to potentially retain easements or other
Mhm.
real property interests. you know, at the discretion of the manager. Of course, she would be conferring with the broker and, you know, the expert on this. But yeah, we would not, if we got to a point where we thought we needed to retain some kind of easement or other interest, we would not want to saddle the district with any types of significant maintenance or repair or liability issues. Yeah, so we would craft the document, the easement, let's say, in a way that was to the betterment of the district.
Thank you.
Director Johansson, comments or questions?
Good.
I move to postpone indefinitely.
Well, I was asking for comment,
I'm
but
sorry.
okay, that's okay. Well, maybe we'll take comment from Director Beerwagon.
I'll second his motion first. And for the reason that I stated back at the last meeting was I'm not in favor of selling just the 17 parcels. In a resolution, I stated, or I said I was not in favor of keeping any parcels for the purpose of denying somebody else to build a dam on that site. I'm going to be an all or nothing guy with this project. Either we keep it, demolish the houses and keep all the property, or we declare it first to sell it all as to dispose of it as surplus, all the property, not this piecemeal thing that we're proposing today.
So I just wanted to make sure everyone understands why staff's recommending this phased approach. And it's simply because of the specific nature of the two types of properties. So the single family residential properties, we do not believe require CEQA to dispose of the property as surplus property. There is a potential that the larger piece of properties, just because of the nature of their size, would need CEQA. So from a CEQA perspective, it would get really convoluted and messy to combine those two phases together. And so that's why we're taking this initial step of proposing to the board to take consideration of declaring the residential property surplus. And then we will look at the larger vacant properties as a separate item.
Well, we do have a motion in a second. Is there any board comment or questions about the motion?
I'd like to clarify the motion.
Point of order, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have right of first debate. As
Oh,
the mayor,
okay.
I do have right of
Then I
first
was going to
debate.
call for public comment.
All right, okay,
on the
great.
motion.
So the reason I made this motion is partly to Director Beerwagon's point, in that we can declare properties surplus without, if we're gonna do it, if we're gonna do this, let's do them all, and we can wade through the CEQA as needed. But the need for deed restrictions, if we're talking about putting deed restrictions and easements on properties, it tells me that in the back of somebody's head, there's an opportunity there, and I want to further resolve that before we take an action like this.
So just a couple points of clarification. So it is somewhat problematic from defining a project perspective to lump those two different types of projects into the same resolution. My recommendation is do not do that, because we'd be costing the district a lot of money and a lot of time wrapping CEQA into these smaller residential units. That does not need to happen. Secondly, I think that there might be a little bit of clarification needed on the easements we're talking about. We're talking about access easements in the event we need to take woody materials out of the Bear River. That was the easement we were talking about.
Or sediment booms or something like
Or
that.
sediment booms.
Sediment.
It's not any other type of easement that is being referenced.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think that even back to last board meeting, Director Stevens asked about the easements, access to the river, and that was how we even not defined specifically within the resolution, but
There's one parcel in
easement to
potentially.
the river
Yeah.
is really the only way. And if there was a fire above stream, if there was a sediment opportunity to gather sediment at a beneficial location near one of these houses, and there was an access to the river that there normally isn't because it's all a lot of private lands, maybe that would be something that the district could benefit from later in the future.
But we were looking at one parcel.
Okay. Well, let me, go ahead, Director.
My reason for the evaluation of the easements is that, and it's a blunt statement, I hate to buy property twice. So if we need access down there, or potentially need access for a sediment boom, log jam, remove burnt timber, whatever the case might be. I would just like to have the ability to come in there. It's kind of like an emergency access
Mhm.
vehicle, emergency vehicle access easement type thing versus something else. But I also don't want it to become the route of entry for all of the swimmers that one of them slips and falls.
Exactly.
Hey,
Well,
You
yeah.
have
and-
liability.
And I will note that that one location that we're talking about is currently an easement on the piece of property. There is a current easement there for the rest of the neighborhood. And the neighborhood is a very defined set of homes and a residential neighborhood that's a private road that NID does not want to be on the long-term maintenance list to continue upgrading and maintaining a private roadway throughout the area that we don't have any necessarily need to do.
Jennifer, just from a educational standpoint, if you could, please. We have 17 properties that we're looking at the moment. We have, Greg has said the number and I've forgotten all these other ones. Could you explain the complexity of dealing with the larger parcels? One of you or both of you, I'm sorry. Because I understand where you guys are coming from, and if it's a shoe that fits all, it'd be wonderful, but if there's something else to it, I'd like to know the timeline and the complexity of legal, regulatory, et cetera.
yeah, they're two different types of shoes, right? So this is a slipper and that's a high heel. And we went to.
There's a difference? I'm a male.
They're both shoes.
Could one of them be a boot?
Loafer and a boot.
Loafer to boot. It comes down to that on the larger parcels, there is a potential that there would be future plan development that is going to trigger a super large CEQA analysis. And a large CEQA analysis will take years to do and can also be very complicated if you rope in these residential parcels into it. So just from a purely administrative perspective, we would never want to do that.
Mhm.
And there has been some interest in the larger parcels that is not yet defined. And that is fundamentally what is driving our recommendation.
What do you mean there's interest that's not defined?
There's been interest from community groups, land trusts, the county, those types of things in those parcels, which they would have a legal right to participate in any market sale. They'd still have to pay market rate and all those things. We're not giving property away. We're not allowed to do that. We're not going to do that. We need the money.
Mhm.
But that's the problem with convoluting those two different types of parcels.
And how would that, then how would those larger parcels, maybe you already said it, but it's taking me a while to soak in the CEQA part. What would trigger CEQA involvement in the larger parcel?
Typically,
What specific thing would cause that?
yeah, it's just some known future plan development that say we're gonna sell this particular parcel for this specific project that is a change in what the current parcel is, that could potentially trigger CEQA. And also,
CEQA is triggered when a public agency, there's a foreseeable environmental impact from an action. Let's say the purchaser is a large developer, pick a name. And if that large developer comes to us and says, I want to buy that property, that becomes a foreseeable change in the environment, potentially triggering CEQA.
That the burden of CEQA would fall on the selling agent
Yeah, that's.
No.
and not on the buyer, because it
That's
seems to me
correct.
that the buyer would.
CEQA only
How come
applies
we
to
get
public
do
agencies.
CEQA?
CEQA always is the public agency.
That's my question. How come we always get to do CEQA?
That's the law.
Entities, so even
I vote, we get rid of that idea.
the wrong legislative body. You need to
Yes.
be on a bigger one. Well, CEQA is always the responsibility of a public agency, even a private entity. Like if you're going to do a large development, say in a city, the city is the lead agency and they pay the agency to do CEQA for them. Private
Yes.
entities don't do CEQA
Right.
themselves.
For instance, Dustin, if there was a developer that wanted to do, workforce housing or whatever, multi-unit housing, they'd have to have a zoning change, blah, 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 but we still would have the responsibility for doing the CEQA.
Potentially.
Potentially.
I mean, we are not the land use authority under. this.
Understood,
So there
yeah.
may be county or city.
Yeah.
Separate CEQA obligations there, but again, we're the selling entity. We're selling a property, and if there's a foreseeable development that's part of our decision-making, then it may trigger CEQA.
Question, if I could, to go back to this, is there a way that we could declare them all surplus now and then dispose of them in phases?
Well, it's the resolution. It's a single resolution that has to go. So I would prefer, once you start convoluting lines of projects,
I
you
can
could
see it would be
have a legal
problematic.
risk. Yeah.
Well, it's confusing. So
You could do a resolution and then provide a direction for us to bring back the other ones at, next meeting or something like that, if it really is of that utmost importance to the board.
So I favor a dual track.
Favor
So
what? Say that again?
dual
Right.
track, one, this is the first step.
Oh.
And just, and looking to see if we're going to exempt surplus status. And if we are, then we make the further decision. Then you have the other lands, which we could be doing at the same time with a different track.
Yeah, and we can
With a different
initiate,
resolution, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
we can initiate the phase 2 track whenever the board desires. It doesn't have to be this long drawn out process.
Mhm.
And I also want to note that NID owns about 11,000 acres in all of our territory region.
Mhm.
Not all of it has a pump station on it or a water treatment plant at it or a powerhouse at it. Some of it is just bare land specifically purchased for watershed specific activities. Some of these properties in the Bear River, the board may identify as, no, we just want to hold on to it for watershed purposes. And it doesn't necessarily have to be coincide with the fact that there's a project in the future or some project on the horizon. So that's where it gets complicated, these large parcels right now. And so we do know specifically that these 17, these homes, there's really no operational or watershed-based
It is,
benefit.
and it does provide a higher risk to the district of having residential.
Yes, it does.
Oh, it sure does. If a fire were to occur at one of those tenant occupied properties, where would that liability fall?
Depends on how the fire starts.
Right.
Faulty electrical.
Yeah, right. Faulty electrical.
Yes.
Happen, does it?
Yeah. Just depends. It could potentially, yes.
Yeah, that's.
And also we have the deeper pockets, right?
Well,
So
exactly. That's,
people tend to
Always the case.
I know.
always rope the deeper pockets in there.
That's how the government looks at it. So what we have a motion and
Okay,
a
well,
second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. I'd like to take public comment now on the motion and the second.
Yeah, Otis Wolin, President of the American River Watershed Institute, and I really appreciate the opportunity to make a comment on this. And in particular, I just want to be grateful for the level of detail that your staff has provided this decision. The background is good. It's very detailed and accurate. The maps are extremely good. Although we found one or two minor pieces on the map, which I want to clarify with you. Yeah, if I could clarify a little bit in the discussion about what public interest groups, environmental groups, land trusts, et cetera, what some of that interest might be, I think that will help your discussion. So let me start with the earliest motion, which was on the 17 parcels, whether it's exempt or not. One of our main concerns is that this is a corridor that has tremendous value. And a couple of years ago, we established a website to promote the continued public ownership, or at least continued ownership that could be in the public interest of open space, of recreational access, of wildlife preserve, of continuity of wildlife corridors, fisheries, those kinds of things. And I think we can all agree that that's in the community's interests to continue that. And, having spent 20 years on the PCWA board, I appreciate the seat that you're sitting in. that your mission is not to do that. Your mission is to be an irrigation district and provide water. And in this case, if you have these assets that are no longer of use, it's your mission to divest them and cash them in. Basically, it's a stranded asset for you. So we appreciate your need to do that. Timing is the issue. So let me jump back to the first motion. Of the 17 parcels, there's only one, and that's the one at 1451 Dog Bar, which is the $1 million property that has extensive frontage on the Bear River. That's really the only parcel of the 17 that we have an interest in. Coming up are a number of opportunities, which I think the district has with a lot of the larger parcels, to be able to get fair market value and to be able to transition those properties into public hands. And I'll go into that in just a moment. With regard to that first 17 parcels, we would like more time on the 1451 Dog Bar to be able to see if we could identify possible public funds. I've had a meeting with both a land expert at the Department of Conservation, Elizabeth Bettencorp, and also the head of the Biodiversity Department at Department of Conservation. That was Megan Hertel. And she's the go-to person for the governor's 30 by 30 process, and also the 30 by 30 funds, which have been passed in the Prop 4 resolution.
Mr. Wallen, I do have to pause you here. We do have a limit of 3 minutes for these public comments. So, I'd ask you to wrap it up. And if you have maybe further written comments, you can share those with the.
I can do that. I can do that. Okay.
Thank you.
So with regard to that, we don't have I have not been able to find any difficulty with the difference between exempt and non-exempt for those 17 parcels. So that's neutral. And I'll maybe consider this comment as part of this resolution, which is an all or nothing. And the resolution of the all or nothing is, I think it's in the agency's interest to take it on a step-by-step basis. If you go into the all or nothing at this point, I guarantee it will be a difficult CEQA problem, and it will be many months or perhaps years before you will revisit the opportunity to make a sale.
Thank you.
And maybe I can make a comment on a further motion that you have, since this technically was a comment
On Brad's motion.
on
Yeah,
the
on Director Fowler's motion. Thank you. Thank you. Is there any comment out in the virtual world here on the motion that is before us? Do you see any, Chris?
Somebody.
Michael?
Oh, okay, Michael. Can you go ahead and speak up? Unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. Good morning. This is Michael Hillwell. I just want to compliment the staff and the board on the quality of the presentation and the discussion that you're having on the issues. And I support the staff recommendation for the board proceeding with the 17 parcels. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hillwell. Okay. Is there other comment? Okay, seeing none. Oh, sure.
Sir, you're saying that you believe that all encompassing, which is the 17, or all encompassing, which is the 48, would cause a CEQA issue?
We're not seeing the 17 parcels as problematic.
Okay, thank you.
And we're not seeing a particular difference between exempt or non-exempt. That's a transparent, yeah.
Thank you. Any other further board discussion? Bringing it back to the board?
I need clarification on the motion that Brad made, because that was the one that was made and
Right.
Chris seconded it. So clarify the motion.
Postpone is to, my motion was to postpone resolution 2025-20 indefinitely. So this matter could be brought back to the board. It could be brought back as needed, but right now it's to postpone it indefinitely, Rich.
Did you have a time frame when you say indefinitely?
No,
Indefinitely.
That
So
is the timeframe.
So you don't support the disposition of these properties ever? I'm asking.
Until
I'm trying to-
further information was brought forward, like the whole package or something. some kind of clarification on the deed restriction. I still think that's a question. I just don't see that this serves the best interest, the best long-term interest of the district.
I do have a
Go
comment.
ahead.
This motion is just to find if we have exempt status. That's it. And if we also give direction to then take into account to put on a track of the larger properties at the same time, that will, that allows us to know where we're at and we make decisions at that time. This is not a final nail in the coffin.
No, it does. It provides authorization to go through the non-exempt process. It provides authorization to obtain the services of an appraiser and a real estate agent. And then
It does say
negotiation-
directing the sale in the
We're-
title.
Yeah,
No.
but I wouldn't have the authority to authorize the sale. That any specific sale will come back to the.
To me, we're doing our due diligence of finding out what kind of value we're looking at those 17 properties. We can give also direction to bring in the other properties and start looking at
Under a
them at the
separate-
same time.
Under a separate resolution or a
Correct.
separate, yeah, got it.
Yeah, in the specific negotiation, doesn't, correct me if I'm wrong, of negotiation of sale price for real property will be completed in closed session.
Yes, if there's a negotiation, so this resolution does delegate to the general manager the retention of a broker, potentially an appraiser, and then to start the sale process. To the extent that there's a negotiation over purchase price or those types of things, that would have to come back to the board, and
Mhm.
it would be in closed session.
Yeah. Any further steps?
Yeah, so actual sale will come back to the board again of any particular property.
Brad, what track would you,
Go ahead.
what track would you see as a better or a more expeditious, effective, better for the district pathway?
If there's 48
My-
parcels, I think we figure out, if they're all surplus, we figure out how to surplus them all.
My understanding that what Jennifer said was that we can surplus them all, but because of the CEQA, potential for CEQA, that it made more sense to do the residential ones, which would have virtually no CEQA responsibility from the larger vacant parcels, which potentially could. And so the bundling of them would muddy the waters, I guess, at the
It'd
state
be more
level.
expensive. It wouldn't be in the best interest of the ratepayers to muddy the waters between the two different types.
It would muddy the waters. Okay, I'm just trying to get clear if what is the downside of doing it that way versus the upside? And maybe Dustin can comment?
I would add that I don't know that all 48 are surplus.
Right,
I mean, some of that property we've owned since the early 1920s,
Uh-huh, okay.
and
I agree.
So some of it may not be surplus, yeah.
So what would make it not surplus?
If it's defined as a watershed benefit for the
Mhm.
district.
By who?
Mhm.
By us?
By us,
By
yeah.
us.
Yes.
Yeah,
Have you done a deep dive? Or have
We've
you done
looked
a
at
deep
all, yeah, we've.
to all the 48, all of our parcels to say, these are obviously necessary, these are obviously questionable, and these are obviously surplus in the eyes of staff?
We need to do a deeper
We need to
dive
look
on the larger parcels.
Okay.
Our first priority is to surplus dispose of the residential parcels due to the ongoing costs, the money that's wrapped up in them, and the inherent risk associated with owning residential parcels. Then second phase, we'll go through the same more in-depth process on a parcel by parcel basis and take into consideration, as Dustin pointed out, one of the parcels the district has owned since the 1920s is extremely large. There could be a potential for some type of watershed benefit or other benefit for the district.
Right.
I'm not prepared at this point to make a recommendation on that parcel, but I still strongly do not recommend you combine those two groups of parcels
It
together.
doesn't make sense.
No.
And how soon would you be able to do analysis of those other parcels?
Probably a couple of months. If you want it back sooner than later, that's fine. We can do that. I think we were kind of trying to get
We're-
through processing the rest.
Mhm.
You can come back with an estimate of when we can get that through.
We have a sense of urgency surrounding the residential parcels.
Right,
I'll just give you, can I just give you a for instance
yes.
here? And when the river fire came through the Bear River, those parcels north of this area that we're referring to, we burned about 300 acres of NID's property. We went in, received grants, and we cleaned up a lot of our property, most of our property that was burned, and neighbors didn't do a thing. And so we have gone in there and taken care of a large amount of what we anticipate as future sediment runoff into the Bear River by cleaning up the trees, taking out dead and dying trees, burnt trees, and replanting trees and holding that sediment on the hill slope so that as future rainstorms come in, we're not seeing large amounts of sediment fall into the river that would have been held prior to that burn. And so we hold these properties specifically, they were purchased long ago. But we've held them and done actual good environmental restoration on the properties that we own, that we have control of. And if they were in the hands of some other entity that isn't looking at necessarily water quality and downstream sediment collection into what would be Combi Reservoir, we're not sure whether or not another owner would be as diligent to go after grants, seek funding, put dollars to large 300-acre swaths of land in a Bear River. So that's a for instance. When we start looking at and analyzing properties that NID owns, we sort of look at it from a watershed. That is really the first lens that we're looking at it from.
So some of those other owners are government agencies.
Some are government agencies, some are private owners. It's a checkerboard. It's a mix. It's not quite the checkerboard above in the high elevation, but it is a mix of property owners.
So we know those properties pretty well. So would it take, 2, 3, 4 months to get some
Yeah, I just need a sense from the board as to
overview?
how important it is, how quickly.
Yeah, we can put something.
Well, I'd be in favor of doing the analysis so that we have a full picture. I'm in favor of moving forward with the resolution today because I so see the difference in these residential properties and the liability versus the larger parcels. So I'd like to see us move on the residential stuff today and then bring back as soon as staff is able, the question of the larger parcels. We can take a look at it.
So basically a two-track system.
Yep.
Yeah, a two-track system, yeah. Because I agree, you may find that we have some watershed benefits from some of those larger parcels, and it benefits the district perhaps to hold on to those. But also looking at the liability with fire and all the other things. So
Vandalism, fire.
vandalism,
There's-
fire, yeah,
It all lives in. that
I know,
space.
yeah,
And I will just say, I'm so much more in favor of private ownership.
yes.
If it goes with responsibility and taking care of the land. We can't do it all.
This is probably not the point to start bringing it up, but for instance, the largest parcel there, if we go into a deep dive on it, we find that a 50-foot strip along the river is maintaining as our best interest, would we want to say, okay, we would like to either put a deed restriction on that property, or would we like to split that off?
Hotline it or something.
Line and
Yeah.
stuff like that to make sure we're protected, but that's kind of the analysis that's needed
Mhm.
before we start addressing those larger parcels, right?
Right.
Yes, on the larger parcels, yes, they do need a deeper dive.
Okay.
Residential parcels outside of building Centennial do not serve any purpose for the district.
That's right.
Say that again, please.
The residential parcels outside of building the Centennial storage project will not serve any purpose for the district. I mean, so I think that's your question.
So we do have a motion in a second. Can we call the roll there and perhaps reread the motion so that everyone's clear?
I shall do.
Thank you.
Director Fowler made a motion to postpone the resolution indefinitely.
And it was seconded by Director
Seconded
Beerwagon.
by Director.
Okay, thank you. Will you call the roll, please?
Division 5,
No.
Division 4,
No.
Division 3,
Yes.
Division 2,
Yes.
Division 1.
No. Thank you. Okay, so
Motion fails.
motion fails.
Back to the main.
Back to the further discussion on the resolution that is before us. Do we have a motion on that?
Can I amend the motion here to encompass the spirit of what Brad was trying to do to get the rest of it into play? Is that legal?
We'll ask staff.
Separate direction.
Provide direction.
I think
Just
it'd be
provide
separate.
Separate direction, not wrap it into the resolution.
Because I concur that that is what we need to do. I just don't know if it is, the two track, I think, is the approach that I think.
Yeah, I think the two-track is the approach.
Why don't we just capture in the minutes that there's direction to look at the other parcels for any
Mhm.
potential easements? And what else, what the other thing we'll do at the next meeting, I can report out on when we think we can bring it back.
Great, that'd be great. Okay. So I'm looking for a motion then on the resolution before us.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-20. Verbiage, declaration of surplus, exempt surplus lands and directing the sale of such exempt surplus lands for not less than fair market value.
I second.
Right, we have a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? Looks like we have one comment. Yes? Mr. Woolen?
Yeah, just briefly, again, we have no difficulty with that particular motion. I want to provide you with one page printed out of our website that gives you some background of what we're doing in the nonprofit community. And two examples. One is that when I talked to Megan Hertel at 30 by 30 at the Department of Conservation and also the Sierra Conservancy, they said it would be by about mid to late June, when they would have an idea about the direction that they are going to use Prop 4 funding, which again is $10 billion, and much of it is appropriate for these kinds of lands acquisitions. They will not know where those lands are going, or where those monies are going to be distributed until mid to late June. And they are not sure over how many years that will be important to distribute. Another example is a meeting that I had with, I got a call out of the blue from Allison Lehman, who's CEO at Nevada County. And she said, I've reviewed your website. We need to sit down and meet. I said, that's fine. Terrific. Set up a meeting. She did. And she said, I have some other people I'm going to invite. Is that okay? I said, sure, that's fine. And at that meeting was Allison and Shivanti Karki Pearl, who's the head of the Recreation Department at Nevada County, Tricia Tillotson, who's the head of development at Nevada County, and also Rob Tucker, who's the most recently elected supervisor. They expressed serious interest, as identified in their recreation plan, on the dog bar large property on the Nevada County side. They expressed clear interest in the Parker Ranch as open space. And they were very interested in what the potential, the opportunity was at the Hanson plant and the adjacent properties. And they said they had heard from many of their constituencies about those properties. Those are the three properties that Nevada County is interested in. That's a wonderful partner to have if you're looking for state funds and you're looking for fair market value and you're looking for a next step. So those are the kinds of purchases that I think are at stake at this particular time and place. With regard to just that one piece at 1451 Dog Bar, maybe by mid-June, we could identify a possible partnership to make that happen. I kind of doubt it. I don't think public funds really go for $1 million homes. It's probably an easement for a riparian corridor. It's just X number of feet. I don't know what that is. We've gotten a grant to do biological assessment of that 7-mile reach that was going to be the Centennial Reach. That should be done within the next 30 to 60 days. And hopefully that biological assessment will help inform both the potential conservation monies out there and potential purchasers of those lands from you. And so we're getting some more information to add into the, and more data to add into the conversation.
Mr. Woolen, okay, your 3 minutes are up.
Yeah.
So I would ask that you work with staff on those, because there,
I'm
it
grateful.
sounds like you have some really great ideas in there, and I know that the county's interested. I've also spoken with Allison Lehman. So, you know, maybe there's possibilities there, but it's not going to be decided here today.
Yeah, I'm sure of that.
Thank you.
We have 2 hands raised electronically.
Thank you. Stuart Feldman, would you like to comment, please?
Hi there. I was going to discuss something as far as that parcel 1451 Dog Bar Road that Mr. Wallen comment about.
Mhm.
Placer County is undergoing a general plan review right now. And I don't know, it's a 19-acre parcel. It possibly could be splittable before it's sold, in which case you could retain a portion of it for public use and sell off the property with the housing. I don't know how it's configured or whether there would be a landlocked split or how it could work, but you might have a staff investigate whether that 19 acres is splittable to sell the residential portion and retain river access. Thank you.
I believe those are zoned Ag 10.
And
Right.
it's 19 acres. So
Right,
you
so that-
might get the county
No,
of Placer, not
Nope.
at all. Okay.
nope. You have to have
Thank
two
you.
tens unless there's a variance or something, and that would
Yeah.
not be for this body to
Thank you very much.
consider. Thank you, Mr. Feldman. Zoom user.
Hi,
Please.
sorry. I'm just curious how long you guys think that this whole process of the selling might take in regard to like the people in the houses. Obviously we will have to find new places to live in the future, so I'm curious how long this sale might take.
We don't have a report out on that time,
Right.
we're.
I mean, there's a certain
Yeah.
amount of time for the state to either approve, disapprove, or whatever, it's like 30 days. And
We have to get the package.
we have to get the package, they have to, RFP to the brokers and or appraiser or both.
We have to come back to the board. I mean.
And yeah, so I think the
4 to
lead
6
time
months.
is 4 to 6 months probably.
Awesome, thank you guys.
Thank you. Is there further comment? Yes, of course.
I just want to clarify something here. So the motion that I presented here is purely to verify that the properties are exempt, the 17 properties.
Mhm.
Get an appraiser and a realtor on board to look at them.
Well-
Nothing can be sold, nothing can transaction until it comes back to the board.
Yeah, real property transactions and negotiations. So this is essentially identifying general manager as the real property negotiator. When we do actual property negotiation, we list it as a closed session agenda item by address and identify who is the negotiator. And then we come back to the board to receive input. Do you like this offer? Do you not like this offer? Do you want a counter offer? And then the final sale of any particular parcel is a board decision.
Mhm.
The follow-up on that would be, we've asked for direction. I mean, we've asked for clarification, the deep dive on the remaining parcels, to have them broken down, and that could turn into a 2-track, a 3-track, a 4-track, a 5-track, based on whether we know this is gonna trigger CEQA. This one might trigger CEQA. This one definitely should not trigger CEQA. So we might have a whole,
We might come back, yes. We'll come back and report out on the second phase altogether, but there might be sub phases within that second phase.
just to keep the pain.
Mhm.
And the printing will be just like the matrix for Plan for.
I do that on purpose. There's a couple of parcels that are really kind of far removed from the other large parcels. So, you could kind of see there might be some.
Mhm.
We just need to understand the whole thing. Yep.
Okay, we do have a comment from Mr. Blevins. Mr. Blevins, unmute please, and then we will close the public comment.
He's mute.
Mr. Blevins, you are muted. If you unmute, you will be able to be heard.
There we go.
There we
Okay,
go.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I live at 21030 Home Camp Road, one of the parcels,
Mhm.
and I'd be very interested in purchasing the parcel when it comes available. So I just wanted to let you keep me in mind.
Very good. Thank you for your interest.
Yeah, I've lived there for 5 years. It's become home to my wife and I and family, so whatever we could do to hopefully keep the parcel, I'd love to.
It's nice.
Thank you very much. That's great. Yeah, they
Okay.
will be more fair market value, whatever that is.
Okay, I mean, the property does need a lot of work, so that'll be taken into consideration too, right?
Yeah, we're not going to negotiate
Yeah, that's
that
good.
at this point, but thank you for your interest.
A good try.
Hey, can't help, I can't help
Okay.
but help but try, right?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I will close the public hearing. Is there any further comment from the board before we vote on the motion?
No?
Okay, seeing none. Secretary, call the roll, please.
Yes, Division 5,
Yes.
Division 4,
Yes.
Division 3,
No.
Division 2,
No.
Division 1.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I'm personally happy to see these parcels be returned to public ownership. So, thank you.
Private.
Well, private ownership, right? Thank you. I said that wrong. Yeah, to private ownership. Okay, thank you. All right, next, we will take up the general manager's report.
All right, first I have one really fun thing to report. Director Fowler and I and Mr. Jones had the opportunity to meet with the Nevada Joint Union High School District regarding their proposed new high school farm project. And it was a really good meeting. And what we came to the conclusion that there's going to be a lot of really good opportunity for the district to partner and support the farm because they are going to be focused on conservation scaled to large irrigation raw water use. And so there's been no specific commitment on anything in particular, but we are committed to assisting them with grants, looking for water conservation grants ourselves, and then providing some input. Because if they can get a large community sized demonstration system irrigation property, it would be really good for our own water users that we could hold classes there or send people out there. So Director Fowler, thank you for bringing him to us.
Cool, very
It's-
cool.
It's super cool.
I know,
And
I read about it.
yeah, and if you guys want to do a tour out there, I'd love to. It's pretty neat.
Is that the one that was featured in the newspaper?
Yeah, just
The
yesterday.
ranch?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool.
Down McCourtney off of, what's that road it's off of?
It's between Chucker and Byers.
There it is.
How big?
80 acres, I believe.
Some.
It's remarkable.
So it needs a larger pond, micro pond.
Yeah.
We need to send our pond consultant out, Rich.
And
Oh.
they've been
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
what?
3 micro ponds and additional micro storage already in the works.
Ooh, yeah. So they used to get a what, inch and a half?
They have 2 inches.
Now they got 2, which is,
Capacity issues. We're going to try to.
so they probably can't get, they need more. They're probably going to need at least 6, possibly.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so that
as,
could
as
be-
much as the canal has capacity for, they could probably use.
And
Yeah.
we're starting to dive in deeper. We
what-
think 4 will be fairly easy. We'll.
Yeah. And some of the land needs quite a bit of work to get it so the soil's starting to flocculate.
Oh yeah.
Is that
Did you say flocculate?
Yep.
Got me beat.
Drops is dispersed. What are they doing at the farm? You don't mind my asking?
So it's an educational farm. Right now there's a beef unit. They have a sawmill where they're actually going to be milling lumber from these surplus trees that we see going down all over. They're trying to get some of those trees in. They're going to mill the lumber for all the district schools for shop classes and
Nice.
school projects. Their kids are going to actually raise swine out there. So maybe some kids are going to have their fair projects stationed out there. They're going to have classrooms. They have interns. They're working with Sierra Harvest. There's a ton of different things that they want to do. And they're just kind of scaling into it. And it's right now, it's really getting some legs.
I like
It
to
is.
hear
It's Lincoln has, have you been to Lincoln
yeah.
High
I know,
School?
I know Lincoln Fire. That's
right?
why I'm glad to see another one coming on.
That's super cool. This one actually has more of a community involvement. So Lincoln High School, their farm is just a high school farm. This one here, the goal is that different boards could meet out there, or community civic organizations could have meetings out there and maybe even rent it out for weddings, or it's just a really neat thing that benefits the entirety of the community.
It
I'd
was
like
on
to
the
support
farm
that any way
tour.
we can.
Yeah, it was on the farm tour a few years ago.
Yeah.
And
That's right, 2 years ago.
It's
I don't
cleaned
remember.
up immensely since then.
It's amazing. Who donated the land?
Jim Phelan, retired from this district. I think he was
Retired from
a
this district.
Yes.
district welder.
And without that donation, this doesn't happen.
That is true. It's a very generous donation.
Yep.
And these are the opportunities that are very important for the district to embrace when we can, because it is really helping to support and facilitate the creation of the next generation coming into businesses like ours, which we need. You know, we need people who want to do this type of work and care about what we do, but then also can serve as a demonstration facility for energy or water conservation with raw water use, which we know can be an issue.
as well as farming.
Yeah, so we're excited.
All
There's that, yeah.
All the above.
So I
They go
love the
hand in
fact
hand.
we're teaching trades, out there,
Yeah.
but the lumber mill is much different than Lincoln's farm, which is great.
Yeah.
Are they gonna be doing like a living museum, living history and, basically showcasing their wares, if you will?
That house,
I do not know.
I think that
That would be
he
kinda cool.
referenced that, but that is a great.
there's a lot of history.
Like where we put on costumes and pretend we're a blacksmith for the, is that what you're talking about?
I meant you bring the kids out from the grade school and let them see how lumber's milled there. whatever.
Oh, I think there's every bit of that plan.
Okay, that's cool, because that brings up the next generation to that level.
Start 'em early.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of my kids have done field trips to the high school farm and they love it.
Jim Drew still
He's,
heading that
he's
up
very involved. I don't know to what extent, but I know he is very involved.
to get that mill going. Yeah.
That's great project. The second item I had isn't fun and does not bring joy to my heart. We did receive another update from PG&E. So we seem to have a changing situation that occurs very rapidly, and it is sometimes difficult for me to keep up as to what we discussed last time, which I believe was surrounding the request for payment or cost sharing associated with the repairs at Spalding 1. Since that time, we have learned. So the plan was originally for PG&E to place a flange in the main tunnel that feeds Spalding 1 and Spalding 2 to allow for Spalding 1 to be dry while they did the Horn B repair to be able to allow water to still go through Spalding 2 PRV and get into the South Yuba Canal. Tunnel was found to be leaking, which was creating unsafe work conditions for the repair of the horn. And so they have had to dry the tunnel back out again, and we will not be receiving any water into the South Yuba Canal while this repair is going on from Spalding. There is a little bit of water potentially related to some small in-stream flows, it's about 5 CFS, and then been working with TOR to maximize any additional natural or our own water rights we bring into the South Yuba Canal, which will be very minimal. So we will be living off of storage again this irrigation season in both Scotts Flat and in Rollins.
Till August 1st,
Correct.
more or less.
Well, assuming they are,
So this Horn B repair is supposed to be complete and start testing it June 26th. Full return to service is currently estimated to be August 2nd. We could potentially have some challenges on refilling. It is likely we will enter into canal rotations again coming off of the Deer Creek system, which is Scotts Flat, because of the capacity issues in the DS Canal and having to pump up to the Cascade. A new issue got brought to our attention. Something else broke in a whole different location up there. So we just learned of this. They're still working through the details. We're still trying to understand what the total issue is, but essentially within Lake Spalding, there are 2 intakes that take water from the lake that go into the powerhouse in the tunnel. When they dewatered the tunnel after they found the flange to be leaking, they found a piece of the intake tower that is underwater in the lake. There's a tower in the lake that is underwater, and there is some type of debris rack, something to keep wooded debris out of the top of it. And there's a piece of this large steel strapping that was found into the tunnel. So that means that they need to go do subsequent investigation to determine as to what the extent of the damage, but also to determine whether a repair or any needed repair can be made while the tower is still underwater and still taking water once the testing starts back up. If it is not able to still take water once the testing starts back up, they would have to use a higher elevation intake. They've ran some original calculations. We do think they can get a fairly decent amount of flow coming through around 600 CFS through that upper intake, which would assist us with refilling Rollins and Scotts Flat once we start testing and go back to return to service. But with all that said, they have not completed their investigations, and so we are still in a point of unknown. So as we learn more information, we'll share it. And I do apologize to be the one to be explaining this to you, as you know, I am not familiar with their system. It really would have been better to hear this directly from PG&E. They did decline to attend the meeting.
You told us all we need to know. You did a good job.
Okay.
They can't send a camera down in there?
They're sending divers. They're probably sending a camera down. It sounds like that they found out about this maybe a couple of weeks ago. We just learned about it
Mm-hmm.
Thursday last week, Friday. So we've been trying to get additional information. We've been having meetings with their staff. So we're monitoring the situation, but our knowledge and decisions are only as good as the information that we're provided. And when we get information provided 2 weeks after it's first learned, it does impact our ability to make sound decisions. So that is always somewhat disappointing.
Do we know when they're gonna send a diver in, and is there any restrictions on the divers being sent in by weather or what have you?
Yeah, always restrictions. Big storm coming in. Yeah, beginning April.
April.
Great business
Mm-hmm.
Was this the lower tube?
This is the lower intake tower.
Tower?
This is a whole new difference.
It's a whole new thing.
If everybody, for those of us
Good.
playing along in
Likely,
this,
right?
this game,
My bingo card is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When does the dam fall?
We should have started a pool.
okay, so just so for all of those playing along, I know this can be difficult to track. So we have the South Yuba pipe fall off the
Mhm.
hill.
Yeah.
We had Spalding when PRVs get destroyed.
Support pillars?
The support columns get destroyed. Then we had the issues at the Spalding 2 powerhouse, which I'll remind everybody that one has been offline for some time. So it is a little bit interesting that now they not only had to go in and figure out how to bypass water through it now, but they also, I can't remember if we even talked about this. There's been so many issues. They're now having to do a full replacement of their wicket gates.
Right. You did
The
report on
wicket
that.
gate
I thought I reported on
Yes.
this.
And the governor.
Yes,
Yes.
which that was completed. The wicket gates is not completed, so we'll be looking at
That's a
another
big-
outage for that again.
That's in 26.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to put all these dates together because things move very quickly. Now there's so many issues as so many different pieces of infrastructure up there. It is hard to keep track of. So we have
Forget I got blackout versus bingo.
well, I'm not even done yet. So then there's the issues with the low level outlet in the dam, which has been a known problem and is highly problematic. It's not working. It's whatever buried and there's a hole in the pipe. And then there is also now a new issue with the intake tower, not to mention the tunnel is leaking.
Right,
So there's some issues up there.
They only made $8 billion last year.
I'm not clear on how much money they make, but I do know that it is a lot for us to keep having to handle. But I would like to continue to thank our staff and recognize Tor and the team and Peter and his team and Justin Coster in hydro operations, as well as Nate Wasley. This has been all hands on deck this whole time because every single time water starts and stops, specifically in the South Yuba Canal, we're having to manage it in some new way that we've never done before. And in fact, coming up on this storm event, we're having to call all hands on deck. There's such little water in the South Yuba Canal. We're afraid it's going to snow in, then it can freeze. And so it's a constant all hands on deck to address this. And without Tor, specifically, he is the mastermind behind all the water movement, we'd be in big trouble. So thank you.
Kudos.
Yeah. Huge kudos. And
I have-
Chip, of course, but Chip's not here for us to.
Yeah. I have a couple sort of follow-up questions to that. So I know that we've been continually asking for the root cause analysis. Has there been any movement on them providing that? No. Okay. Then I also noticed that PG&E put out a press release that said, everything's great.
Yes.
We're
yeah,
repairing everything right on schedule. There's no problems, essentially.
in the newspaper.
Yeah, in the newspaper. And I got asked about it by someone. They go, well, PG&E says everything's okay. So, I'm wondering if we should put out a press release. I mean, it's kind of unbelievable that they would put that out.
You're going to say, don't believe them?
Well, we could just say, this is what I don't know. I mean, someone better than I with words could figure that out. But it's really interesting because the public is understandably confused.
I don't blame them. It's
Yeah.
confusing situations. There's so many things wrong at so many different locations in the same infrastructure area. It is a little mind boggling. So let me take consideration of trying to put out some information. It's also hard because it's not our infrastructure. So it's very difficult to have to.
Right, but we could at
what's
least,
going on.
we could at least report out on what we are being told by them to say, in contrast to what PG&E has said on such and such a day, this is what we have been told. I don't know, Greg, what,
Follow up on that if I could. One, could I request a list of issues so I?
Oh, that'd be great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting lost also.
With dates on them, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, let me,
our chart date started.
yes, I can do that.
The second thing is can I request, staff start doing a feasibility analysis for eliminating PG&E from our systems?
Oh, yeah,
Or,
I like his idea.
Well, yeah.
yeah, whether it's a bypass, whether it's take over their systems, which are in total disarray, so we have to fix everything or something.
It's a bunch of options, right?
Yeah, options. Let's do
Cool.
a
I
feasibility.
like that
study.
idea.
A little premature.
Yeah, I think, but we're in our minds starting to work through, this is obviously unacceptable. It's an unacceptable position to be in the long run. It is detrimental to not only our ratepayers, but also the entire Nevada County economy and a large portion of Placer County. Something has to change, and whether that is a bypass or they finally determine that it is not a piece of infrastructure they're going to make investment in that is needed and warranted, do they sell it or what? But
Right.
let me start working on that. It might be a little bit of a slow burn.
Is there anything in rules, regulations, laws that if they degrade something to a certain point that it becomes a piece of property that can be foreclosed upon? You know what I mean? I don't know.
That is an appropriate closed session.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Can we have one?
Well,
I have a question for Jennifer about the newest, did I interrupt you, Rich?
I just want to put on schedule that we're going to have a closed session within the foreseeable future.
Yeah, we'll put it on.
The newest, the trash screen that fell into the pipe, or
Tower.
I paraphrased.
the
Okay,
tower.
the tower.
Yeah.
Is that repair do we anticipate that's gonna be incidental and it will not further extend the repair schedule? Is that gonna be something, we think that they're gonna fix that wall in the midst of all these other things?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It really depends on the extent of the damage. If it is just one piece of the rack falling, that could be incidental.
Okay.
If it's
If it's the whole thing
larger,
falling
yeah,
apart.
if the whole thing's crumbling inside, we haven't.
I just like one clarification.
Oh, yeah.
I support what Earl was saying about a feasibility study
Mhm.
because we need to, but I think it's a little early yet because they're still fixing things. They're still discovering problems. But when the time comes, we need to do it.
Well, we can start the 30,000 foot elevation, look at it, say these are options. This one's off the table. These three we can take further when the time comes.
We've done a
How much
lot of, it's not gonna be difficult for us to
bandwidth?
come back with something and
Mhm.
give us a few months. It's already on our radar. We've had internal discussions. We just need to kind of sort through some things.
Does PCWA have the same concerns and levels of difficulty with PG&E with regard to this that we do?
Yes.
That's my question.
Yeah, they have a little bit of a different relationship with PG&E than we do due to the nature of their water purchase agreement.
Mhm.
They have a water purchase agreement, whereas we have a coordinated operating agreement. So our issues are similar but different.
Hmm.
We do coordinate with them.
Well, I was just looking to see if we would also have a partner in PCWA in helping us to,
They're always a great partner.
okay.
yeah.
Greg, is it time for Brad and I to meet with our PCWA reps to?
That was in June.
That's in June.
That's in
Yeah.
June? Yes.
And that's all I had to report. That's why I started with.
Hey, thanks
Start
for
with the
starting
good-
fun one.
The
Yeah.
good news, right?
It's sounding like an agenda item.
Right, okay, thank you. We will then move on to Board of Directors items and reports.
My big thing was I'd like to see that feasibility study and see if we could become whole.
Right, great idea. Rich? Anything to report?
Life changes at noon.
I know, it's exciting.
Oh.
There might be a sale of some lands
Oh,
that
his land.
might be happening for him. So Director Beerwagon, do you have a report?
No, I want a second. It's on my radar, what Earl proposed, along with In that study, we have to take a deep look at the feasibility of running those power plants or not, you know, and what that looks like. If we were to move that direction, because
Some of them haven't been running for. a
they haven't
while.
been, I'm suspecting that, yeah, worse than that. Anyway, that's all I have.
Okay, Director
But I
Fowler?
fully support that.
Dirty little.
I have no updates. Just really excited about the school farm and
Yeah.
NID's partnership in that endeavor.
Right, right. It's really great. Don't have a report, but I did want to ask about, in thinking of those power plants, that they've been offline for all this time, what is, in looking at the feasibility study, what would be the feasibility of just decommissioning the power plants and let the water flow through? It's
a long.
a long thing.
Part of it.
Okay. So it's,
I don't have a good answer for you. You know, they're all
Okay.
wrapped up in FERC licensing, so.
right, yeah. And you would think FERC would be paying attention to what's happening there. Do we know if they are?
I got furloughed.
I was just saying.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They probably don't have jobs
Uh,
anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they are aware of the situation. I have spoken with one particular staff person about, they're aware
Okay.
of the situation. They're aware through the required reporting PG&E does. So
Okay,
they have knowledge of it.
very good.
Yeah.
Okay, with nothing else, then we will be adjourned.